All right, my name is Mark Aoyagi. I'm Director of Sport and Performance Psychology and an Associate Professor at the University of Denver. And the types of jobs that the Master of Arts in Sport and Performance Psychology prepares students to do, the primary position, the largest hire of sports psychology graduates, is the U.S. Army. I'm actually in their program which is called Comprehensive Soldier and Family Fitness, or CSF2. And the position is called a PES, Performance Enhancement Specialist. Of course, in the Army, everything has an acronym. So that's the largest hire of sports psychology graduates. In addition to that, students will go into private practice where they'll be an independent consultant and work with teams of athletes, performers. Another primary avenue is coaching. A lot of students come into the program having been coaches and want to continue on as coaches. Some decide that they want to go into coaching as a result of the degree. So that's another main category. Being a master's program, we also have a lot of students choose to go on to a doctoral program, and that can be typically in counseling or clinical psychology, although many sports psychology programs are also in departments of sports science, so that's another route that students go. And the final path is what I call other, which kind of sounds daunting initially, but in reality it's a good thing, because one of the principles that we teach our students is that the skills that they learn to help athletes and performers perform at their best are applicable really in any occupation and any life path and life in general. So we have students doing things from teaching, or I should say graduates, that are doing anything from teaching music classes, teaching yoga classes. They are working as support personnel in hospitals. Some work with hospice patients. So a pretty wide variety of different things that people do. Some are in the business world, working with, one works with vacation management. So kind of all over the board with what people can do with the degree, but the skills that we teach tend to be transferable to a lot of different domains. So a lot of options in terms of where graduates can end up. All right, typical coursework and learning experiences in a sports psychology program. The key differentiating piece of sports psychology is the focus on performance. That's where we're really different from general psychology. So students will learn about performance enhancement. A typical course there would be sport psychology interventions, where students will learn the skills and techniques, methods for helping athletes or performers to improve their performance. Another common course is in team dynamics or team cohesion, where if you're working with a team or a group, you learn the processes for how the teams develop, how the athletes or performers work well together, the coach or the leader of the performance group, how to take into account their contribution as well. You also have, on the consulting side of things, learning about consulting methods. So that's going to involve how to take into account what we often call in sports psychology a triadic relationship, which means that there are three groups involved. So that would be you as the consultant, your client, and then what's called the consultee. So a lot of times that's an organization. So a common example would be a sports psychologist working in an athletic department, where you'd have the consultant would be the sports psychologist, the client might be a team, a specific team, or even a specific individual on a team, and then the consultee would be the athletic department. And so you have to consider all those layers of the relationship when you're working in those situations. You also can expect to receive coursework and experience in understanding psychopathology or clinical issues, so mental health issues that can manifest. One of the things that sometimes people not in this field misunderstand is that athletes are basically going to be healthy people, and the reality is that they experience all of the same stressors and all the same issues that regular people experience. And so it's important for sports psychology practitioners to be able to recognize and refer, if they're not trained, to work specifically with clinical issues and mental health issues. So all that's on the coursework side of things. The most important learning experience And this gets into a little bit of what type of program you're looking for. In general, sports psychology programs can kind of be split into those that are more research focused and preparing people to be researchers and academicians, versus those that are more applied focused in teaching practitioner skills and people that want to be sports psychologists or sports psychology professionals. So most students tend to be interested in the professional and working with athletes and performers realm. And so in those types of programs, the other really critical learning objective to look for is applied experiences under the supervision of licensed professionals or certified professionals. So that would be where you have an opportunity to work with a team or an athlete or a group of performers, applying sports psychology, practicing performance enhancement, and then you receive specific oversight, what we call supervision, from a faculty member or a community member that's affiliated with your academic training program. And this is a critical piece for people that want to be practitioners. It's really where you learn, well, the way that we talk about it is that there's an art and a science to being a practitioner. And so in the classroom you can learn the scientific part of it, but in the field under supervision, working with athletes and performers is where you really develop the art side of the profession, and that's really what's important when working with athletes and performers. So in terms of the capstone experience in a sports psychology program, many programs, particularly those that are research focused, will end in a thesis, and so that is where you'll conduct a oftentimes empirical study where you're collecting data from athletes or performers. So you might have a particular hypothesis about motivation or confidence or team dynamics or something of this nature that relates to performance. You would collect data and analyze that data to support or deny, confirm or reject your hypotheses, and write that up into something resembling a journal article, which is typically about 25 pages or so. Depending on the program, you may have an extended literature review where that can get quite a bit longer. You can see theses that can be up to 100 pages or more in length. The other option that you'll see that's oftentimes in more applied programs is what's called a competency exam or a comprehensive exam. And that's where you'll actually demonstrate your skills and knowledge base in being able to intervene with athletes and other performing artists. And so that might look like maybe a case study where you'd be asked about, you'd be given a hypothetical situation with a team and you might have to share to your competency examiner what you would do in that particular situation, and usually ethics and legal considerations play a prominent role within that, and then also being able to connect the science that you've learned in the classroom to your practice. So the advice that I give people interested in going into the sports psychology field, first and foremost, is it's hard to get accurate information on sports psychology. So there are two primary organizations in the United States where you can get good information on sports psychology. The first is called the Association for Applied Sports Psychology. ASP is the acronym, AASP. And on their website you can learn about what sports psychology programs are available, what goes into being a competent sports psychology practitioner. ASP also offers the only certification for professionals practicing sports psychology in the United States. And so you can look at what are the experiences necessary to become an ASP certified consultant is the name of that certification. They also have on their website, ASP makes what's called the Directory of Graduate Programs in Applied Sports Psychology. So that's a resource that you can look through to see all the different programs that are offered within sports psychology and what the requirements are for those programs. The other primary organization is Division 47 of the American Psychological Association, APA. So Division 47 is exercise and sports psychology, and their website also has information about the profession of sports psychology as well as a section for students. So with those kind of as guidelines for some information you can gain, what I talk about, and again this is for students that are interested in the application, the profession of sports psychology, is to gain as much experience as you can working within sport and performance environments. One of the things that we look for in students is the ability to be comfortable working in those situations, and that involves a couple of things. Number one, recognizing that there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress that go along with seeking high performance and performance excellence, and so being able to manage that and be comfortable with that. And second is there's the potential to work with high-profile individuals at the collegiate level, at the professional level, Olympic athletes, Olympic hopefuls, and so forth. And so one of the things that draws people to sports psychology is being interested in or being a fan of sports and performance domains. But the reality is, in order to be an effective practitioner, you cannot be a fan. You have to be able to interact with individuals who might be famous or who might be very high performing or who you might look up to or watch on television, and be able to interact with them just as you would any other person, as opposed to putting them up on a pedestal as some fans and sort of regular people might do for these athletes and performers. The other piece that I would add is that if you can gain any experience in a leadership role within sport or performance domains, so that could be teaching music classes, it could be coaching within sport, any opportunities that you have to gain experience sort of creating or being involved in those performance environments is very beneficial. On the academic side of things, any coursework that you can take in sports science or in psychology. Sports psychology is kind of the marriage of those two disciplines. So any coursework you can take in those realms is advisable. On the sports science side, courses like exercise physiology, kinesiology, biomechanics, these would all be helpful for you. Courses on coaching or pedagogy would be helpful. And then on the psychology side, basically any introduction to psychology, abnormal psychology, clinical issues, diagnosing, interviewing, counseling methods, any of those type of coursework would help to put you in a better position. And then the last thing that I would say is that regardless of what direction you're interested in going into, to really do as much homework and understand that profession as much as possible before you invest in graduate school. So if you have any opportunity to speak with a sports psychology professional, or even to shadow him or her, to be able to question them about what their daily life and activities are like. Graduate school is a big investment in time and money, and so you want to make sure as much as possible that you know what you're getting yourself into, and you have a good idea that the field is going to be a good fit for you kind of before you commit that time and energy to going into the graduate school process.